Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Another beggar comes to us in the first story, so be patient. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Had an uncle move in with my family. My uncle moved in with my family in January because he owes a ton of money for some reason. He used to live in a big house in a very nice neighborhood with his ex-wife and kids. They ended up leaving him for some reason also. As soon as my siblings and I heard he was moving in, we asked ourselves, why can't he just get an apartment? It turned out he hadn't had a job since 2019, and his large debt prevented him from getting the apartments he wanted to get due to bad credit, but he could have easily gotten an apartment that he could have paid for with his monthly unemployment check and his credit. He was fine when he first moved in. My siblings and I tried to be sneaky around him late at night when getting water, since he sleeps in the living room, but he noticed and told us the next day, "It's your house, you can do whatever you want." Later on, he started to change. Apparently, at some point, he told my mom, his sister, that he wouldn't take jobs that paid $10 an hour because that's too little. Then he started complaining about how he couldn't sleep because my parents got up early to go to work. Dad and Mom go in at 5 and 6, respectively. The only way we found out about the complaints he has is because he complains to my grandma, his mother, and my grandma obviously tells my mom because she knows we're in the right here. He then got a job in a market that was close to the one he used to work in, but promptly quit because it was a sales job on commission and because he felt like he wasn't making enough money. Also, he found a job that was exactly the same job he had in 2019, but with a different company. After a few days of having that job, he told us he found a place to stay that was closer to this job, a room in this lady's house that she was renting out. He told us the day he was leaving, and something on the lines of, "I can't stand living here anymore with all the waking up before I have to and how uncomfortable I am sleeping on the couch." He wasn't packing or talking about the move at all. On the day he said he was moving out, I found out that his plans had fallen through because he found out the room was too small for him. I guess he'd rather sleep on the couch over having his own room, no matter how small. It's either that or he realized he felt more comfortable here while not paying any rent or utilities. And our second story. The Wonders of Middle Management. Hello everyone, I have a story for you from my time working for a gift shop in a mall. Now the shop is a part of a big corporate blah 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 and all, so I won't be saying what the name of it was. But you might be able to guess at some point if you know it well enough. I started work at the place shortly after moving to a new area. Big old mall, few stores I was familiar with, so I'd wandered in and asked if they were hiring, and was basically handed the position as long as I would take a supervisor role. Had experience in such a position before. I wasn't thrilled with being management again, but whatever, I needed the job. At first it was all right, decent place, I got along well with some of the employees and not with some of the others. The usual workplace sort of things at first. But after a while, I noticed things aren't quite right. People spreading rumors behind each other's backs, a lot of employee turnover from people getting fed up with toxic environment, and after a while, chatting with various basic employees, I discovered the source of all the trouble was the manager and assistant manager. Both had been there longer than anyone else at the place and seemed to go with turning the rest of the employees against each other to keep from looking up the ladder to find problems. Both of them would yell at people, customers included, about all manner of crap. The assistant manager would have her kids and baby daddy stop by the store on a regular basis and interrupt the workflow. Meanwhile, my wife comes by once to drop off something for me, and we both get yelled at over it. Ex-employee that was buddy-buddy with the assistant manager showed up one day and just hung out in the back room. The for security restricted to employees only back room, and when I pointed that out, surprise, I got yelled at some more. Then the two of them took off for like 2 hours to wander the mall together while assistant manager was on the clock. Several instances I found one of these two breaking corporate regulations and pointed it out to the other. The one I confided in would basically rip my head off over it, and then the other found out, so I'd get berated even more. Covering each other for violations, covering each other for time being late and leaving early, so they still get the scheduled time on the clock despite not being present. So what I did, I started keeping notes. Over the course of several months of working there, looking for another job, I was keeping notes on all the crap either of them did that was either a corporate regulation broken or just adding to the toxic and stressful work environment. At one point, one of them caught wind of my notes through one of the other employees that saw me writing once. I passed it off as a cathartic exercise, and then had to explain what that meant since the manager wasn't the brightest. She claimed to be proud of the fact that she had less than a high school diploma's worth of education. One of the more frequent things was the discards/damages. In this store, we, mostly management, are graded on a loss ratio, how much stuff gets stolen from the store versus how well we do on sales. The manager, when it came time for damage reports, stating what had been returned damaged in the store, etc., would report the stolen merchandise as damaged instead, resulting in a better-looking report for the store and a better-looking report for her paycheck. At one point, the company sent out an email of the top offenders across the entire corporation for number of times the time clock had been edited. The top two for the entire company were our store's manager and assistant manager. At this point, I realized someone had to be paying attention further up. Since I was getting to the end of my patience with the BS around there, I gathered all my notes and wrote a letter, about 4 pages worth of detailed descriptions to what had been happening, why other employees had left, and about money the company was losing due to how the place was being run, and sent it directly to the president of the company. Big old poster in the back room for employees that have grievances or suggestions, etc., to mail to this address if needed. A month passed, no improvements, more employees leaving. But one day the district manager comes for a usual store inspection and calls each employee into the back room for a private chat. "So, tell me about this letter you sent." My face turns into a smile, and I recount every detail I could off the top of my head, clarifying a few things he asked questions about, etc. He says since they've been there that long, they can't just be dropped immediately, but the two will be under a strong review. I get a cell number and go about my work for a while longer. Now, originally I was going to transfer to another place across town, different store, the same company, in a different mall, but I discovered while covering shifts there that it wouldn't be beyond the reach of the store manager I had grown to despise, so I put in my 2 weeks shortly after, citing I'd found another job as the reason, because you had to submit the reason for leaving while in front of a store manager, and I didn't want to hear more than I had to in the last 2 weeks. I found out she had to explain during a conference call to the DM that I was leaving rather than transferring, so I hope that was as uncomfortable as it could be for her. On the day I left, damage report was going on again, and I made notes of the exact product numbers that were stolen merch, being marked as damaged, sent one last juicy text to the DM from the parking lot as I left the place behind for good. He thanked me and said I'd have a job if I ever wanted to return. But a year or so later, I was filling out work history stuff for another job and went to look at that store's website for contact numbers, etc., currently hiring for manager and assistant manager positions. Got 'em! And if the two that were the trouble somehow read this and realize it's talking about you, I just want to say, you got what you deserve for making all your employees miserable, you effers. Nicely done. You took time, notes, and patience to bring them down. I don't even get paid. Years and years ago, I worked retail as a minor. This was the 1980s, so in some non-corporate businesses, you could get away with this. I looked more grown-up than most kids my age, probably because I dressed more adultly than was usual for a dinky little gift shop. Customer, you have to give me the discount. I know the owner. He always gives me 50% off everything. Lady, I really doubt that. I know the owner. I'll get you fired if you don't give me the discount. Oh, would you? Please get me fired. What? He's a slave driver. He doesn't even pay me. I want to be fired. What? The owner's my dad. Now get out. He'd never give anyone a 50% discount because we'd be losing money. She went all red with embarrassment and rushed out without buying anything. I had to put back everything she'd brought to the counter, but it was worth it just to yell at someone. I was the only one in the shop that day since I was covering for my dad, so I knew I wouldn't get in trouble. And it's true I wasn't being paid, but my parents paid for my college so that I didn't have any student loans, so I guess that was fair compensation. And our last story. My manager is hardcore about dining and dashing. So the other day, my strict manager was in a particularly good mood and told us this story, and I thought it belonged here. A week or two ago, it was dinner time on a Friday, so like plenty of other restaurants, we were really busy with a long wait. A former employee from a different location comes in to apply for a job. Because of how busy we are, the manager asked the cashier for basic information and her resume so he can look her up in our system. He finds out that she can't be rehired per company policy, so he has the cashier tell her that the restaurant is too busy for a manager to interview her. Despite not getting an interview, the girl and her friend decide to eat dinner and not pay. My manager looks over the tapes and sees the girl applying for the job walk around through the store section of our restaurant, go to the bathroom, and leave. A few minutes later, her friend does the same thing. Luckily, he has all of her personal information on her resume that she left, as well as information on her car from security cameras. What does my manager do? He calls her back up and apologizes for being so busy. Maybe she could come back in for an interview with him. She wants to know when, so my boss lies and says that he's leaving on vacation for a few weeks, and it would be best if she came back in as soon as possible. An hour later, he sees her car pull into the parking lot and calls the police. He sits down with her and conducts an interview like any other. He excuses himself to go get some availability paperwork and comes back with the receipts and confronts her about not paying. She immediately starts freaking out, saying her friend told her she would pay for her meal and talking about how her friend was always stealing from her and she shouldn't trust her friend anymore. She offers to pay for her meal but says she won't pay for her friend's. My manager tells her that she'll pay for both or he'll bring in the police, that he's already called. She pays for both meals and leaves a nice $5 or $6 tip. Then she asks my manager, "Wait, you didn't just bring me in here to have me pay, did you?" My manager tells her, of course not, but that she should come in tomorrow and ask for Teresa, our general manager, so she can interview her. Sure enough, she comes in the next day and asks for our GM. Teresa tells her that not only will she never work at one of our restaurants again, she's not welcome back at our location. A lot to go through for a dine and dash, but still amusing if you ask me. Thanks for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.